very warm welcome to both Anand and Chaitanya, and also to everyone else who has joined. Anand Jain is the co-founder of Clevertap, as most of you know, one of the most well-known SaaS companies to be created out of India, I guess almost for the last 10 years now. Prior to which, I'm not going to run through all the roles he has had. I don't want to reveal his age with that, but he has been at Network 18, Infomedia 18, Burp, and Motorola, and then a few others, but been in senior product and technology roles across many of these companies. And thank you, Anand, for being here.
Thank you for hosting me. I'm looking forward to a very engaging conversation with everyone.
Let me also welcome Chaitanya. Chaitanya is one of the founders of Darwinbox. Again, no points for guessing. It's one of the most well-known companies in the SaaS space from India as well. While I can't make that comment about Clevertap, but with Darwinbox, I can make that statement that it is among my long list of regrets in India. I had the chance, I remember having met Chaitanya. I don't know if you remember, we met in Jaipur.
Yeah.
Where you showed me a very early demo of Darwinbox, but I made the mistake of not investing. But prior to Darwinbox, Chaitanya also had roles in E&Y and Verizon. So thank you, Chaitanya, for being here as well.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me here today.
So Arpit, over to you first. Yeah.
Got it. So actually, I have one question for the both of you, and please do take it up in no particular order, actually, which is typically, if you look at product development orgs, people split them into a product function and an engineering function. Any views on whether even that split should be made, or should you have a single organization with, in some sense, product design, engineering, all the other functions put together? And how should one think about the two choices?
I think it depends on the stage of the company. You're an early stage company, and let me define the stage as well. This is not by the round of funding, I would say, but this is the amount of money that you're making as ARR, right? So I would say $0 to $10 million would be, you keep them together because you have generalists at that stage of the company. You're not trying to necessarily hire a specialist. You go from, like, as companies progress, like, everything, when you're the first three people, three co-founders, or the first 15 guys, like, everyone does everything. Like, the website needs to be updated, the same person does it. A new AWS instance has to be spun off, it's probably the same person, right? As you become big, you hire specialists, like, there's a security guy, CISO, like an infra person, like, you have product marketing guys and so on and so forth, right? So even for product and engineering organizations, you would start by keeping them together, like, maybe, but you wear different hats. So I've been an engineering / product guy for the last 30 years, and so have been my co-founders. But you wear the product hat, you write a little spec, and then you take that hat off, and then you wear the engineering hat and say, okay, now that I've defined the what and the why, I will now figure out how to solve it, right? And so that's the thing. As you mature, like, you got to keep those organizations separate because they perform a very distinct function. The product owns the why, the what, and the when, while engineering owns the how. And that's an important thing, like, and as you go deeper into this, and I can maybe talk about this in for like a minute more, your product organization will evolve into multiple functions, right? So I took over product, believe it or not, last year in Clevertap. Before that, I was not running product. I was doing business development. But since last year, what I've done is, instead of having one amorphous bunch in the product, I've separated these out into like 5 different lanes. So there is product delivery, which is responsible for shipping features. Then there is product intelligence. So you go and you run all sorts of intelligence reports, NPS, product adoption scores, what geography, which customers are adopting the product. You come up with the product adoption score and all that. Then there is product experience, which kind of is tied to the hip with product delivery, but they have user experience, they have copy guys. You have product-led growth, and finally you have product marketing. And in each of this there is an entire universe, like, product marketing will have further subdivisions and all that. So the stage at which we are in right now, which is close to $100 million of revenue, you need to specialize, you need to have specialist functions within the company. And that's why we have split this up. So there is separation of concerns. Like a good engineer, kind of you architect your organization So everyone kind of focuses on their respective areas as opposed to like everything trying to work together. So so that's the answer, and we can double click in the conversation later on each of the function and how does it all work together.
Got it. And Chaitanya, what do you think about this?
If I look at the question, there are two challenges or two areas here. One is a reporting hierarchy, basically, who should manage these functions, and second, basically, functional specialization. So now, when I look at the specialization, at least in SaaS or even in other sectors also, both the functions evolved as very, very specialized functions. So, for example, product management. So earlier there was no product management, right? I mean, when I was working 12, 13 years back, the entire spec writing, even UX also left to the mercy of the engineers. So I was only creating the designs as well when I was coding, etc. So now those functions evolved very, very fast. Now product management is a very specialized skill set. So good amount of hustle and specialization, domain expertise is required. So while that is definitely a capability that a lot of good engineers also carry, in fact, that is how, in fact, I define a good engineer, challenging product manager on the spec that he comes up with. And given, he understands the spec, definitely he's going to deliver it. So very, very simple. But, having said that, at least if I, again, start a company, I would hire a product capability very, very early in the journey itself. And so rather than assuming early set of engineers can also do or design, product. So both are different functions. And when it comes to reporting, a good product comes out, at least as per me, as a result of healthy conflict between product engineering and UX functions. So again, all three are very specialized and the deep capability is required if you want to build a good scalable product, and there should be a healthy conflict as well. So I believe there should be a good individual, strong leaders for managing these three functions, product engineering and UX. Now the roll up can be, not necessarily be to a CEO. So you can definitely have a head of product and engineering, who is consolidating all these functions. That's how, at least I see. And this specialization, at least, okay, like I said, probably the volume and the sort of people that you have may vary, but at least I would invest very, very early in the journey.
Once there is some early signs of PMF, right? And that may not be at, let's say, the 5 or the 10 million ARR mark, but much earlier, and the org is still very nascent. And Anand, going back to what you were saying, everybody is doing everything. How do you, what are those initial signs when you know that you need to add structure? And then what are the first things that you need to do to start adding some level of structure to an org, which typically ends up being a chaotic org at that point of time?
I think when you have too much context switch in your day, when you're going from a website edit to a marketing meeting to looking at the sales funnel, and then suddenly you're wearing the engineering hat and you're going and analyzing logs, etc. You figure out, okay, I need specialists, I need people to own certain responsibilities. And I'm assuming we have founders here, a lot of founders. And as a founder, you got to figure out if you're getting distracted in multiple directions, you need to put a specialist on the chair of the function and say, okay, you own this infrastructure. All topics under that will come under you, right? Now, whether you may find an existing founder to take on the responsibility, if you find one of the existing early employees to take on the responsibility, or you need to get a specialist from outside, depends on what your original founding team was. But that's how you'd start splitting responsibilities. And then, we run a very heavy infra heavy company. So we need specialists there, that cannot be a part-time job. You find someone who's more capable than you to kind of then take it forward. And then they are thinking about just that part 24/7, right? They're thinking about scaling, security, speed, cost optimizations and all that topic. At least you're away from that. So that's how you kind of, as you grow, and even in early stages, $1.5 to $2 million of ARR, you got to figure out what's taking up your time, and then there will be some natural passion and alignment. The three founders, we are product and engineering guys. So I knew sooner or later this ball is going to come back to me and I'm going to run product. And Suresh, my other founder, is running engineering, right? But it was a matter of time. I knew that I just can't randomly run sales or marketing. We need to find specialists there for us.
Just to chime in, I think both of you have talked about this as you grow, the need for going from generalist to specialist. And it's true in every org that one does. And I'll confess that I'm more a go-to-market guy, and that's the language I understand. That let's say I'm building a SaaS sales team or a go-to-market team. Gradually, even with very few people, I begin to differentiate responsibility between someone who's doing inbound or outbound lead gen versus an SDR versus an account executive, right? So there is a role distinction that begins to happen. And I'm first going to go into the engineering org here. As you think of the engineering org, what are the first set of divisions? Is it like back end, front end? Is it like QA versus DevOps versus infosec? I mean, what are the first divisions and the next set of divisions? I'm just curious to understand.
It starts with separating out the infrastructure capabilities, because they're very different, right? You can have full stack engineers, but infra, at least for us, Clevertap is like a specialized thing. We run massive loads. We run thousands of virtual machines. We run a marketing automation platform, so you can assume everyone's traffic sooner or later hits us, right? And these are some of the most traffic brands in the world. So for us, the first one to go was infrastructure, DevOps, as they call it these days. And we found a capable leader. And for the longest time, we did not have anyone under that leader, right? Until I would say little over 3 years ago, when we started getting a team in place for that person. But that was the first one to go, right? The second is, I would say, QA. Again, like, you can have full stack engineers, but QA is a different mindset. Right. And again, this is not about like, hey, let me find some bugs, etc. This is quality as a topic, and it's a very deep topic. Then comes out security, which is part of infra, but get to its own thing. Again, I'm assuming a lot of enterprise companies are listening here, like, certifications, ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2. You need a person just responsible for these things. These things suck time. They're not part of writing code, but they are processes, and some are just time. They just take their long pole, right? A SOC 2 Type 2 takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months after you have implemented the control. That means if you start today, you might see the certificate a year later. So these have to go in first, and then front and back end. As you componentize your front end, like, saying that, okay, instead of trying to write HTML new every time, we'll create components, we'll have a design system, etc. So you evolve into these stages and these kind of mini teams, but you do that. Like, for the longest time, the person that did the Clevertap dashboard was also responsible for the website, because, hey, you know what, design, and why not? Like, they're both the same. And of course, we are like running a very, very tight ship, right? And now we have separated this out as of 3 years ago. The person is now part of the experience team. And because, designing for a dashboard is very different than designing for the Clevertap website or landing pages. So that's how you kind of start divvying it up into different functions.
At what scale did you begin to have a separate person for DevOps, or a separate team for testing, or a separate infosec team? Maybe either in ARR terms or size of engineering team will be just useful to understand.
Yeah, so I can give a context. Like, we grew, our first year revenues were $1.3 million, and the next year was 3.9 of ARR, pure play, repeatable revenue, recurring revenue. So we had to scale extremely fast. Like, that means that in the first 2 years of going live, we had to separate out the function. So the DevOps person, literally happened in year 2 for us. And then I said, for the longest, as in, like, until I would say $15 million of revenue, we had no team under that person. This person had a baby in the meantime, went for paternity leave for 3 months, and came back. The person is so good, the infrastructure continued without any hiccups. So like I said, you need to find someone who's better than you at that stuff, right? And the other functions were, like, design was about 3 years ago, where we were, I would think, $30 million of revenue, where we separated out the website team from the dashboard design team. So that's how we kind of evolved.
Sure. Just to add, I think, Alok, I mean, there is no, one answer, a solid answer for this question. I think to a large extent, it depends on profile of the founders. So in case of Clevertap, all of them were techies. So, they could, first of all, hire infrastructure. For example, in case of Darwinbox, none of us were techies. So I was the only pseudo techie. So other two, didn't even know about this technology. So now in our case, maybe I'll share our journey because I assume some of the people, some of the founders are not techies. I mean, who started. So you need first that solid engineer or engineers, full stack engineers, so who can build that first version of your product. So now, while as much as you say a full stack, so they hate to do front end. They don't do. I mean, they would be pretty good at data modeling and backend engineering, etc. So these are the sort of great guys that you get in the market. So now what it means is generally we outsource the whole UX and UI as well, the whole JS work as well when we started. So when we were about, I think 700, 800K revenue, so got, I think 15, 20 clients, that is when we hired our first engineering manager for UI. We segregated that. So till then, it was that first one engineer and then 5 engineers. So who are building actually the platform, the backend, and the data modeling, etc. So that is how we started. So QA initially, pretty much we leveraged same resources for doing testing as well as product implementations as well, because they're supposed to understand product very, very deep, and it was not very big as well back then. So it's you start very small, right? So we didn't have a dedicated QA, but like Anand said, I think if I go back, I would invest QA a little earlier than later. So I feel that still that culture, if you invest early, I think that will give you the results as well. Otherwise, suddenly you bring in QA guy and changing the processes and bringing that quality mindset, etc. It's very, very difficult. And DevOps and security, again, it is a function of I believe the business you are in. So if you are in a very, very compliance heavy sort of a business, so we are in a very compliance heavy business. So we deal with very sensitive data. So now there is no way we can even sell without aligning to certain compliances or answering CISO questions or going through infosec audits, etc. So we had no option but to invest heavily on security and compliance very early in the journey. But generally, if you're not in that sort of business, maybe if you're in a D2 direct to consumer or B2C sort of a business, probably first 2 years or 3 years, I've seen people outsourcing the whole, even DevOps and security sort of thing rather than building it in house. Yeah.
Got it. So I'll pick the first one from case one, which is directed to you, Chaitanya. Even though you found PMF in the initial geography that you focused on, how are you thinking about the org as you build for the US market? And is it as simple as hiring a bunch of local product managers, or do you need the LT? I'm assuming that's the leadership team there as well.
And maybe Chaitanya, if you can answer this in the context of product and engineering as opposed to go to market, that will be useful.
So quite interesting question. Every product is different, but what I assume is you will have some geography agnostic components. So in any product or modules in every product. For example, in our case, if we take maybe performance management module or rewards and recognition module, etc. So it doesn't matter whether you're selling in India or US, it is same. So you don't need a product manager as such for US. So now and then there are. So I split this into 3 parts. One is the common modules, and second, the platform capability. So irrespective of what you are building, if you're building an enterprise application, you need to solve for your time zone, currency. I might be very oversimplifying, but they become very, very big they become very problematic at scale. So you need to solve for time zone, you need to solve for currency, you need to solve for multi-language. You need to solve for good multi-language, not only for static text, but notifications, emails, and everything. So these are certain core platform capabilities that you need to build, whether you do one country or multiple countries, because end of the day, you will have end users distributed across different countries, etc. So the platform team, as well as the modules where you don't need a geography specialization, there is no point hiring or placing them in US. So they have to be centrally placed, and they need to understand the nuances of building a global enterprise grade application. So that is how I see. There are few modules which are very, very compliance driven, and you need to add a lot of local flavor. In our case, for example, if you take time management, leave and attendance, so every country has, its own set of nuances. No two countries would be same in how they manage time or overtime. So now same goes for certain onboarding modules, etc. So I personally tried, keeping people here, understanding from, some experts there, or, from learning from the clients, etc. So, but, it didn't work out. In fact, it was not very, very effective. This is something, I've learned in a hard way. For these modules, it makes a lot of sense for a PM to sit out of those countries and operate. So, and staying close to the client. And the second thing is, very rarely, consultants work actually. I mean, someone, so with all due respect, basically, people telling you what to build. I mean, you have to figure out on your own, be it benchmarking or talking to the clients, be part of the sales calls or learn from pre-sales, etc. So you need to figure out. And this whole learning process becomes very effective when you sit in that market. So it may sound, why should someone sit in the market? I mean, all these things, you do based out of India as well. But when we moved people to Singapore or Indonesia, when we're building for those countries, suddenly the pace of learning and the pace of building became very, very high. So that's what at least I see. I would like to answer to that.
Actually, Chaitanya, I do want to ask you on this, that given that compliance in HR is such a big thing, and you're right that, so did you have to find people in different countries? And if you did, how did hiring like one individual in product or whatever in these different countries, if you had work out for you, how did you integrate? I mean, isn't it a difficult thing to have like bulk of your product team in one place and these one individual in Indonesia, etc.? How did you manage that?
What worked for me, guys, seasoned in Darwinbox and knows our system well and ways of working well. In fact, we send them there. So we threw them and told them, to figure out.
Oh, okay.
So we never, hired there and asked them, to tell us what to build for that country. So I think that is the only way that works. So that guy has to figure out, maybe, identifying some partners or someone there who can help him understand the nuances, or, taking part in the sales calls, etc. I think, that is how you can also give good career sort of, opportunities for your long timers.
Understood.
Actually, Arpit, before we go to the next question, I do want to extend the previous question, because at least I think many companies have dealt with this, and maybe Anand, you can answer this. There is a group of entrepreneurs, and actually I must confess also VCs, who believe that after you get to a particular size, your product leadership, your, for example, also user experience head, etc., they need to be based in US. And I'm particularly picking US because I think a lot of companies end up selling in US. Would you agree, disagree? And have you thought about this question, and how have you solved it for yourself?
Product leader has to be based out of the US after a certain time. We took the other way around. Actually, like I said, I knew sooner or later the baton is going to come back to me. Both the product leaders were based out of the US.
Okay.
It did not work out for us. Now, the reason being, if your bulk of the team is going to be here, if center of gravity is going to be here, and your product leader is going to be there, there's a lot of on-ground reality, right? Which is very hard to kind of like, because of the working hours overlap, especially in the West Coast, like US.
Yeah.
You hardly have overlap, right? It just is very hard. The reason I took over product, and what I've been doing is that I've been trying to build a lot of my product function here in Mumbai, is so that I can work very closely with them. I have massive overlap of hours, 12 hours of overlap. And then of course I'm available on email and Slack, right? So you need to have that kind of an overlap, even in the current stage of the company, because your product function will expand. Like I said, from product delivery, there will be multiple kind of subdivisions in the product. I don't think so that you need to have a product function in the US if you consider the global set of customers. So for us, we have, we happen to be, in Mumbai, and we happen to sell to India, Southeast Asia. But I think we wanted to be a global company from the get-go. We wanted to make sure that the product works for across the globe, not just for a certain geography. And I still hold that belief. I've been holding it for the last 10 years, right? I'm going to sell in India. I'm going to sell in Southeast Asia, Latin America, North America, all parts of the world. So we're not building something just for one geography. And that means that your product guy can be anywhere.
And Anand, just to follow up on that one, today is the entire product team in some sense based in Mumbai, or do you have some folks sitting in other geographies, but the leadership ends up, spending much more of the time here, where it's a center of gravity?
Yeah, so entire product team is based out of India, but 3 months ago we acquired a company, one of our fiercest competitors in the US, called Lean Plum, and we inherited their team. Now their center of gravity, the team wise, was in Eastern Europe, in Bulgaria, which thankfully for us is about 2.5-3 hours from India, time zone wise. So it worked out very well. We got an extremely good set of people there. And I think between us, we kind of, again, massive overlap of hours, and culturally we are the same.
A bunch of questions. Maybe I'll pick. I know there was one, Anand, which I think refers to a talk that it took you a long time to onboard your first set of customers, which does not seem to tally with your year 1 and year 2 ARR numbers that you mentioned.
Yeah, I can qualify that. Yes. So, let me first qualify that, and then you can ask the rest of the actual question. So the first 30 months of our life, again, we did a lot of unconventional things, including selling in, starting to sell in India, etc. Right? But the most unconventional thing we did was when we started Clevertap, for the first 30 months, we were busy building this core technology that powers the product. So we did not start with the product. We wanted to build this this database that is 100% real time, can store petabytes worth of data. It's called Tesseract DB. We did a reveal early this year in May at MAU Vegas. But that's the core technology. That's the secret sauce that powers the product. So, and thankfully we were able to raise 2 rounds of funding, right? Both our seed round as well as Series A from Axel and Sequoia respectively. So year 1 of monetization for us was almost 6 years ago. And that's the year when I think maybe it was pent up or something, we kind of, could get good customers, signed up. And then the year 2 was even better than that. So 3x growth.
If I look at the question, which an independent of your go-to-market journey, essentially, how do you set objectives for the tech/product team or the combination when there is a lot of ambiguity around what actually needs to be built? Because customer data requirements and maybe more things. And again, not directed at any one of you specifically.
So if I take probably a step back, I think this is something everyone can relate to. It all starts with how are you going to plan and deliver roadmap? So end of the day, that is your Bible. So as operational as it may sound. So now you ask a simple question, fundamental question. So what is going to be the duration of the roadmap? So is it 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month or 1 quarter or 6 months? So now for what duration you are telling your team, these are certain things you're working on. I won't disturb you. So now, so it obviously the duration increases as you grow up, or as you become bigger. So earlier, when we started, we used to deliver every week. We had no option. So and then it became bi-weekly, and then monthly, etc. So then I've been asking my team to even move it to a quarter, but they're saying no. So it's very agile world. So we have to deliver every month. So now it's a monthly sort of a roadmap. So what we typically do is we deliver every month, but a major release we do every quarter. So it's primarily, and we plan for a quarter. So now every quarter at the beginning of the month, you finalize what you are planning to deliver for that month. Basically 4 sprints. Every week is a sprint. So now at least we ensure the team is not disturbed in these 4 sprints by pushing in ad hoc requirements to them. So I tell them if there is any ad hoc requirement because of a very large implementation that is stuck, or a big client that is asking, or escalation. So either directors or VPs or whosoever, you guys have to pick and deliver. I don't want to disturb team on the ground. A Scrum team should not be disturbed at all. So now identifying this operating model is the essence or the fundamental aspect for giving the goals to them. So then, everything follows, right? So then, predictability. You need to ensure you plan for a quarter. So there will be a cutoff for that. And then, then you need to a predictable forecast versus, how much you deliver. And then, the quality of the deliverable. So then it is very, very commonsensical. Everything falls into that place. So as product leaders, so time to time evaluate this deliverable plan or this roadmap plan, and probably, recalibrating is the most important aspect.
Actually, I'm tempted to ask a follow-on question to this. And I've always wondered about this. As a sales guy, I knew what I was being measured on, right? Either the number has happened, number has not happened. I mean, there was no room for ambiguity, at least in my life, right? But again, I was an engineer 27 years back is when I left coding. So, but at least in those days, also because the tool sets didn't exist, there wasn't really an objective way to measure my productivity either, right? As of course, the world has moved forward. I mean, there's a question for either of you. How do you measure your engineers today? Is it lines of code, number of releases, number of bugs they have? How do you bring objectivity to your evaluation of engineers?
It's complex. It's, one is estimates versus delivery, number of bugs, regressions in production. And there are softer aspects also, right? Softer aspects being, so it's never lines of code. That's a bad way to do it. I mean, I can always, I've written code for 30 years. I can always make hello world sound like the world's most complex thing. So it's never lines of code. It's also, the quality of the deliverable. And sometimes it's an internal QA that catches defects.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of that code coverage. It could be unit test cases, mentoring, softer aspects like mentoring other teammates, and bringing process improvements, leading from the front in terms of technology, etc. So these are the things, a mix of hard and soft measures through which you can measure engineering.
Alok, I mean, if I may add, this is quite interesting subject. So measuring productivity of engineers. So there are two aspects. One, the competency or a skill, or the second is behavior or will. So competency is very, very easy. So in just 2-3 months time, you'll figure out whether the guy is competent or not. So, and as per me, there is no point measuring that only. So I mean, if you're telling you're not competent and keeping him in team, then fundamentally something is wrong with you, honestly. So you only keep competent people over the time. So unless you made a hiring mistake. So second is obviously now, the question is about, the will or the behavior. So it may sound very, very counterintuitive, but as per me, you should actually measure a competent engineers only on the behavior or will. So now you are a great coder, but you don't even bother to do unit testing, or at least do a one sanity testing and throw whatever you deliver to QA team. That's a very bad behavior. Or you basically give a very, very inaccurate estimates, because you don't worry about delivering what you committed. So these are certain things that actually affect the org as a whole, or a team as a whole. And a very effective way, at least, two things work for us. One, we rely a lot on pod rating. So how a group of people or a pod is performing. So 50% of the weightage goes for the pod performance, and second 50%. So we ensure there is a multi-stakeholder feedback, 360-degree feedback. So we use Darwinbox only for that. So we take feedback from QA people and then UX people. For example, all the product managers, etc. So for example, a product manager skill also you should measure like that. I don't know how well is he explaining to UX person, and how well he is explaining to a tech, etc. So we use that inputs. We use those inputs, actually to measure performance and give whatever feedback that is required.
Got it.
Got it. Actually, on adding on to that one, there was a very interesting question. Should product managers have revenue OKRs? And if yes, how do you, in some sense, make sure they still stay to the core product mentality and not become fully on the sales side, right? That there is that healthy tension that you want between your go-to-market and your product teams also.
I think it's a level of maturity, right? In the early days, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's evolution. But in the most mature companies, product is run like a P&L. What point is in building features if no one's adopting them and no one's paying for that, right? You end up with different classes of features, right? There are filler features, there are killer features. There are like the willingness to pay on the feature, right? So unless someone's ready to pay for it, why would you even develop it? Of course, it has to align with the long-term vision and all that, but I think the willingness to pay is very important. So, but you can't bring this on day one. You can't one day say, hey, you're responsible for revenue in the company. So I think it's gradual. We are moving in that direction slowly, by measuring adoption. So when we get feature asks, etc., you put a dollar value to it, and then you use that as one of the prioritizations to figure out, whether, and when you build that, will the existing customers adopt it, and will new customers pay for it? It becomes so like I said, it's an evolution.
But Anand, just to build on that one, and sorry, Anand. Do you, let's say I gave a revenue estimate for a particular product feature, and then, we built it out, we made it live. And now let's say that the revenue estimate was X and we got 60% of it. Does that then go ultimately all the way back into the OKR and your performance evaluation that happens even as a product manager? Is that what you're advocating?
Yeah, not in Clevertap right now. I'm not sure whether it should or not. I've not thought about it, to be honest. But I think it is used as a feedback mechanism to go test, hey, when we did, whether we should build it or what's version 2 for this feature. Were we biased? Were we trying to measure for our own bias, saying that, hey, we already want to build this, now let's find people who will actually say yes? Or were we doing an objective evaluation? So I think it boils down to that. If 60% adoption is there, while you wanted 100% of the set of people that wanted to use that feature or wanted to pay for it, you got to go back to the drawing book and say, maybe you left something out, maybe something critical. And it's also a function of time. We have seen these things come and go. If it takes 6 months to build something, maybe some of the organizations will build it themselves, or they'll figure out a workaround. And it's not such a critical function anymore for them.
One more question, which I know we have discussed multiple times with, I think, a lot of founders also, is how do you start adding, if I may call, managerial layers in the product and the engineering functions? I think typically you have, at least when you're starting off, you have leadership. Oftentimes that's part of the founding team, and then you have a whole bunch of individual contributors, and then getting, engineering managers, multiple product managers.
So maybe, okay, I'll take that up. So for product management, at least, okay, the way I see it is there are 3 skills that are required. Actually, the whole execution, operationally, writing a spec, doing benchmarking, all that. I mean, that very, very, very hands-on sort of stuff. And second is review. When someone is doing that, someone has to review that, right? I mean, just to ensure, okay, the quality is maintained and most optimum solution is achieved, etc. Third is direction. So there should be a directional clarity given by someone. So these are 3 layers that are skill sets that I see in product management or even engineering function as well: execution, review, and direction. So I mean, if you look at, the evolution of any function, initially, one guy would be doing all these things, and slowly then you will have one guy doing direction and review, and then another layer evolving to do execution. So then slowly, 3 layers will come: execution, review, and direction. So this is the evolution any function that does. So for example, all the people below manager level, that belongs to execution layer, your APM, PM, SPM, etc. And then all your directors, etc., they're actually in the review sort of competence level. And then, all your VPs are actually in the direction. So I think, over the time, this is how first, all 3 together, then direction plus review together, and then execution separate, and then, all 3 separate. I think that's how you evolve. So if you want me to put some numbers, etc. So I think up to it's also a function of module maturity. So till a module getting a reasonable PMF, product market fit in the segment that you are working in, maybe a 2-3 million or a 5 million sort of a 3 million at least, a 2-3 million sort of a revenue, you don't need these many layers. So I think one guy should be doing everything. And then when maybe a 10 million sort of a, see again, my numbers would be little skewed and less because, I am in poor Asian markets compared to Anand. So we don't operate in the US. So maybe, when a module is about 5 to 10 million, you need the second split. Over 10 million, you need the third split. But, what I would also like to highlight is second and third layer, review layer, and obviously direction layer. So it's a distributed. So you might not need dedicated for every module. So, it's obviously you aggregate multiple modules at that layer.
Understood. And Anand, any views on how to do that for the engineering org?
No, this is, sorry, I was taking notes here as well. Like, we have not grown with such science. Ours was more ad hoc and organic. And I mean, like, this is funny because we've spent so many years, like multiple decades, like in product and engineering, and still we were like a little ad hoc. What I did was like on the product side, product delivery organization, which is one of my 5 pillars, like, I divided this into lanes, and each lane is made up of a pod, and each pod has like a unit. And the pods report to a director level, lane leader, and then the lane reports into like a VP level position. So that's my breakup. But like I said, I don't have a revenue, like, because we don't sell modules independently. You buy the whole platform. And we are just getting to the adoption measurement, etc. In the spirit of the adoption, not like how many times someone created a journey or a campaign, but did they create the right kind of journey? Is it a retention journey? Did they see the ROI? Those kind of things. So this is the product adoption level, a different way of measuring it. So I don't have anything, deep to add here. Like I was taking notes.
Anand and Chaitanya, I have a question. I mean, on this, as you're growing, layering the organization. Again, both of you in the beginning talked about the generalist to specialist. And, usually when you hire the very early employees that you're optimizing for great attitude, first principles thinker, can do X, but can do Y. They're not worrying about the boundaries in the organization, etc. Now, as the organization progresses, you begin to segment the organization into slightly specialist organizations and then leaders for those. How easy is it for the generalists that you hired in the beginning to have transitioned into specialist leaders? And if not, what do you do with those people? Because they were the loyal ones. They were the ones who sort of raised their hands up when you were nothing. So how have you managed those situations?
Okay, I mean, the way I see it is some people are 0 to 1 guys. So they enjoy those challenges. So that is what, gives them fun. I mean, lack of clarity and lot of chaos is what, they thrive in and they enjoy. So these are the sort of the people, obviously, you need when you start the company. So some people are 1 to 100 guys. So they like scaling, etc. That's where typically you get them from the market. So like you rightly called out, some people fit into both the roles. So I mean, 0 to 1 guy, he also, it's actually a lot of personal scaling also, right? In fact, if you ask me, that is precisely what a founder also goes through.
Yeah.
A 0 to 1 to 1 to 100. So a founder not adopting to that or not scaling becomes the biggest liability, in my opinion, to the company. So now similarly, some of them won't go through or make that journey. So, but one good thing is there'll always be 0 to 1 problems that are there in the organization. So be it a new product that you're building or a new market that you're building, these guys will be great. Just, you throw them at those problems and, they'll be very, very good. So, and they get bored the minute, okay, structure is coming into the picture, chaos is coming down, etc. So now, then again, you have to push them to another problem. So if you don't have enough problems or you got tired of that guy, maybe it's time to take part ways.
Have that chaos came down for you, like it has still not come down for us. So
not at all, not at all. That is what I'm saying. It is definitely there will be parts of organization where there is 0 to 1 and a lot of chaos, so you can use them.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, kudos. I think he, like scaling the founders, like you can, obviously other people can go out and you can get specialists in, but the founder scaling is, I've come to realize, like, is like the biggest challenge because you're the bottleneck, like, there's no one to replace you, whether you like it or not. And you got to scale yourself first and find new roles for the generalists. Like, there's always, like he said, like a new market or a new product or something that you're doing, like the start of a new sigmoid curve, if you will. And you got to place those people there and then they will take it to the next level. And this goes on and on. maybe your second line of, maybe you're ready for the second line of product, maybe you're ready to go to a new market. These things.
Yeah, there is one such guy, junior guy, like I mean, not so junior now. He's been with us for last 7 years. This guy is so great at such things. So whenever we start a new country, we send him there. So he'll stay in some Airbnb or do whatever, some jugaad, he would do, and he'll survive. He'll get to some level. So 6 months is what he likes that. Okay, and then he gets like he says, I'm getting bored. I mean, again we throw him to Singapore or Malaysia, Indonesia, US.
That's a very interesting framework. I think both of you are referring to. We all tend to sometimes segment people functionally that they are front end, back end, etc. But very often it's not front end, back end. It's their core DNA. Are they the sort of creators versus the scalers? And I think making sure that the creators are getting intellectually stimulated through different problems through the course of the.
Alok, I read this in a book. Like there are Marines, and Marines operate in a small, like a unit, and you have to go tell them what it needs to be done. You don't have to tell them how it needs to be done. And then there is an army. When Marines capture a beach, they get the army, and after that, you need law and order. Like they're not inventing new things; they're just maintaining law and order, right?
No, that's a very good analogy. I'm going to use this, Anand, I'm sure in future many times.
The last question, I mean, if we have 1 minute,
of course.
Tasks and customer support cases, because this is something like I've been breaking my head. I mean, I haven't got the answer, but I would like to share our journey. So we all go and we say, okay, we have a roadmap. I mean, I told you, right? So the first part is finalizing the tenure of the roadmap. We're a 100% SaaS company. We don't customize. We only configurable and all that stuff. But still, this is the reality. So I heard, different people doing different things. For example, I heard from few companies where there is a dedicated team building for these things, etc. But honestly, it didn't work out for us, because at the end of the day, it's the same code base and same platform. You need to enhance. I was not very sure. How can the set of people building something just to handle ad hoc tasks, etc. Unless it is sitting outside the product. So. And practically we told ourselves, no ad hoc tasks going forward. Water is frozen, so it doesn't work. So sales guys, will come next month and okay, like give you nightmares. What the hell? Okay, do you take it? Then we don't do. Then this client is going. Are you fine with that? So practically that is not possible. So what at least seemed to be working for us is we computed the bandwidth that we have from engineering perspective. So how much man hours we have, etc. And then we did, obviously all of us do the t-shirt sizing, right? I mean, small, medium, and large when there is a REQ. Then, we converted what we can pick up in a quarter or a month. So we can, in this module, we can deliver maybe, 5 small points and 5 medium points and 6 large points like that. So then in a quarter when we plan, so product manager, they have to take a call on these are 5, 6 or 10 strategically important things, which, whatever, I mean, even if founder says, I won't listen, I have to deliver these things. Unless you don't give him that authority, then next 10 years also, you will have enough backlog and REQs on. So, you will never do anything, that's actually moving the needle. Then other things, we would be reasonably flexible. We'll tell them, so these things, you take a call. So you can switch one point with another. So there, the biggest thing is, when you give that option to the people on the ground, then regions comes into the picture. So SEA guy wants some point, India guy wants some point, and then US guy wants some point, West guy wants some point, BFSI guy wants some point, etc. So that is extremely tough. So you should not negotiate. Let their leader negotiate and give you, okay, I'm okay, I will manage my chaos. So you replace this point with this point. So it seemed to be working, but eventually that was also giving nightmares, because the weeks and weeks they're debating, fighting, and they were not coming with the point. And by then your scrum is getting over. You're neither developing anything nor getting anything from them. Then what we told ourselves. So we told ourselves, okay, we will take a risk. At least we are not very large as a company, and we haven't reached that stability where things are extremely stable and predictable for us. We tell, okay, we take the risk. So now we keep depending on again the age and maturity of the module. We decide this X percentage of bandwidth we always set aside for ad hoc tasks. So now, the worst case scenario is no ad hoc task coming in that quarter and that bandwidth going wasted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least, okay, so far we haven't faced that. I don't see that happening in next 2-3 years also. So I think that seemed to be working. So net, sizing, figuring out objectively how much bandwidth you have, sizing, quantifying how much you can deliver, and then giving some accountability for switching the points, and keeping always practically some bandwidth for ad hoc is what helped. What didn't help is basically creating a separate team and all that stuff. This is all the same team that is working on a module or Anand, I mean, yeah, I'd like to hear.
No, believe it or not, we went through the same journey. We had a crack team, and that team was responsible for dealing with requests for some of the largest customers. And none of these things help because they're not responsible. They might, they'll build whatever's required to be built, and then they'll move on. And then, some other team is going to be left with the cleaning up behind them.
Yeah.
So we said that the best is that, this comes back to the core team, and we'll keep some bandwidth free for them to take on, either ad hoc tasks, or if nothing else, they will do tech debt, whatever it is, but keep some bandwidth aside. And just deal with it, so while there are features always there's bugs coming in production and all that, but keep something aside for some of these ad hoc things. And there are some parts of the product, because of the width of the product, breadth of the product, some parts get more used by customers. For example, campaigns and journeys for us, we'll get, definitely everyone will come up with a new feature request. And because of the nature of the markets also, like India, Southeast Asia, Latin America are more heavy on WhatsApp, push notifications, though all that. They want the deeper capabilities around that. North America, Europe, they want email, SMS. So it's kind of a good, healthy tension, I would say. It's good that people are wanting features. The peaceful, Chaitanya said, if everything is kind of steady state, we are stable, I would not like that stage to be in. I like I said, the things are not settled down, and I don't want them to be settled down. It's good, actually. It keeps everyone a little bit alive.
Great. I know we are already beyond our time, so we'll take a pause here, because we always say that, look, we are going to end the discussion in an hour. Want to thank Anand and Chaitanya. This was fantastic, actually. I really loved the discussion. Learned a lot from this, and I hope that the audience felt the same way as well. And please do keep telling us what are the topics that you are keen on. Please do email us. That way we know what to curate for the next time. But until we meet again, thank you all, and see you soon.